Booker, I know back in the day the players did not get paid as well. What was the average salary for the players when you played?
I don't know what the average salary was. I don't know if they even had an average salary because guys was not making that much money anyway. So if it probably averaged out, I mean, people will laugh about it because I thought that maybe I should have went on and taught school. I'd have made almost as much money teaching school as I was playing football. The difference is that school, you're there 9 months a year plus, and you're restricted to certain things. And football, you know, even though you're restricted to certain things, but at least there's a fun atmosphere to that. So I came in at $7,500 a year. Baseball, I got an offer in baseball at $7,000 a year. I just looked at the situation and say that baseball you play 154 games, football you play in 14 games, and you know, and I'm making $500 as opposed to $7,000, and that's why I chose football more or less. You know, and plus there were some other reasons that I, you know, Lou Saban was a coach of mine at Western Illinois, and he called me and asked me did I wanted to play football, and I thought about it because I never thought I was going to play football. It never even entered my mind for me to play professional football. No, there was nothing in my mind to even indicate that I would play professional football. Never thought about it. And when Lou Saban called me, and I said, sure. I said, send me a contract, and I said, but you have to hold it because, you know, in those days, you could not play professional sports and still participate in college sports. So I told him hold the contract until baseball season was over with, and then we'll go from there. Two things happened. Me and the coach got into some kind of rift, so I didn't play my senior year in baseball in college. The other thing is, which I guess is more important, that Lou Saban got fired from the Boston Patriots. So he was out of job, so the contract was sitting there, and he asked me what did I want him to do with it, and I told him that you know, by him being fired, I said tear the contract up and call me when you get to the next place, not knowing that he might not have got to another place. But that's part of the history.
Wow, that's very impressive there. Shame that you weren't able to play your senior year for baseball, but I guess a little twist of fate ended up providing you to go to Buffalo instead.
Yeah.
As opposed to those Patriots. Gotta ask, physically speaking, how do the players compare now compared to when you played?
Well, if you take a look at, and I'll start with the secondary, there's not that much difference in sizes and everything. The difference there is weight training. They get it from high school, they get it in college. You know, they're bulkier, they got weights, they're stronger because the equipment is, the equipment nowadays is anywhere between 6 to 8 pounds heavier than it was when we was playing. So you have to have strength and everything to be able to carry that extra weight. They get more specialized training. You know, when I was playing, we had 5 coaches. We had 4 coaches actually and the head coach. Now they got 19 different coaches out there. So the guys are getting specialized training. They get more time with the coaches to be able to show them the things that they need to do to make them a better player and all that. So the linebackers, they are bigger in one way and they're faster in other ways, but they don't tackle as well as the guys used to do back in those days. And it goes back to...
You see them bouncing off all over the place, yeah.
Right. The linemen, a totally big difference because of the weight training programs and because of all those things. There's a lot of difference there. Offense, same thing, a lot of weight training and everything. You look at those backs, you know, they 220 pounds and they look like little stone statues out there. I mean, they have worked hard to get it. So the biggest thing is training, the conditions, the off season, they got the OTAs. I mean, we had to come to camp to get in shape. These guys come to camp in shape. You know, so that's the difference. I don't see, in terms of talent and ability, that they're that much greater than some of the guys back then. It's just the idea that they had the opportunity to work out and train and do that and build themselves up to be a better ball player.
With your advocacy for retired players' compensation, what do you hope for out of the future collective bargaining agreement?
Well, first of all, it's always about the current players because that's the CBA. However, we have 4, 5, 6 issues on the table about former retired players, and number one is retirement. There was different types of retirement levels from the pre-93ers, that goes back. And so we're trying to look at a compensation based on that's going to make it fair in terms of those guys coming up. The other thing is the health care. There's a lot of guys that they play the game, and the league have said in the past is that, wait a minute, they haven't played the game in 10, 15 years. Well, sometimes it takes 10, 15 years or 20 years down the line before those injuries show up. And so therefore, they should be liable for that, just like even companies, when they have different policies and they have different things in place for workers like coal miners and stuff like that, is that they know that this stuff is not going to show up until 15, 20 years later. So we're asking for health care, we're asking for pension, we're asking for dementia, we're asking for, well, I shouldn't say that. When I say dementia program, is that there's a lot of folks that's going through, whether it is dementia or whether it's debilitating circumstances, which falls under the healthcare too.
Yeah.
And so therefore, but we're looking at the legacy plan, and because guys, their images are being used on television every day, and they're not getting paid for it. The league packaged these things that was going on during our era. They take them and they package them and they repackage them and they sell them. They repackage it and they sell them, and we don't get anything for it. So we're asking to, hey, if you're making money on it, why can't we make money on it? It's just not being unfair.
I could say that I've seen Mike Stratton's hit quite a few times on different packages for NFL Network and
Right.
For Buffalo Media, where John Taylor's the catch, or I should say Dwight Clark's the catch, in '82 against Dallas.
Right.
You see those all the time, and you know that they're not getting paid. That just sounds criminal.
Yeah, and people take a look at it and they say, wow, what a hit, what a hit. And they play it back, If you look in the record industry, when you play the records, there's some compensation every time you play a record. It should be some compensation, will there be a lot of guys getting the compensation? Because what they would do is just basically cut it down to a certain piece and stop a lot of that stuff. But at least it sends a message that says, look, we ought to be paid.
I can agree with that. You guys worked your butts off for part of your pay, basically. You had to work a second job, many of your teammates. And now NFL's making so much money, you guys deserve your piece of the pie.
Yeah, well, you look at it, you're right, the second job, because I taught school on the off season, and I worked for the phone company later on the off season. But we had to have a job because we wasn't making any money. Back in those days, the owners was making all the money and everything, and the players really wasn't making any money. Now, the players is getting their fair share, and so we feel that that's a very well compensated situation, and so therefore the players is getting compensated based on the things that we did back in those days. So that's why we're looking for the current players today in the CBA to negotiate the former retired players into the contract, so now we can get our just due.